something just snapped. In a courtroom that's been slowly building tension for months, this was the day everything exploded. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's golden couple, just faced the kind of exposure no celebrity brand is built to withstand. Legal filings, courtroom arguments, and explosive testimony have painted a picture that's nothing short of catastrophic for their carefully curated image. And what's even more shocking, the backlash isn't just coming from tabloids or YouTubers. It's from the bench, from the legal system itself. Because this isn't just a PR disaster anymore, this is a complete collapse of control. The once untouchable duo are now fighting a two-front war, the courtroom, where a relentless defense team is unearthing inconsistencies and contradictions in Blake's narrative, and the public arena, where their brand has taken hit after hit. We've now seen lawyers openly challenge Blake's credibility, we've watched Ryan's own emails introduced into court records, and we've even seen former allies begin to distance themselves fast. But the most damaging part, the judge's words, scathing, unforgiving, and entirely on the record. This isn't speculation, this isn't gossip. This is a legal unraveling so severe, so humiliating that even some of their closest supporters are now asking, how much did they really know, how far did they go, and more importantly, how long did they think they could keep the truth buried? Welcome to a story that has now entered freefall. This is Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds ripped to shreds in court. It's all falling apart. And trust me, you're not ready for how deep this goes. Something just snapped. Inside a courtroom that's been steadily boiling for months, the temperature finally reached a breaking point. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, long regarded as Hollywood's most carefully managed and adored couple, just faced a level of exposure no celebrity is prepared for. This wasn't a PR misstep or tabloid rumor. This was the justice system speaking. And what it revealed could be the beginning of the end for one of Hollywood's most tightly controlled public images. For the first time since this case exploded into headlines, the court moved beyond procedural hearings and into something far more serious, publicly questioning not only the veracity of Blake's claims, but also her and Ryan's roles in shaping a narrative that may not hold up under legal scrutiny. The courtroom wasn't just reacting to words anymore, it was reacting to evidence, emails, texts, contradictions. The illusion of control so carefully maintained by Blake and Ryan cracked wide open. At the center of this collapse was a court order demanding the release of previously sealed communications. Justin Baldoni's legal team filed a motion arguing that these messages between Blake and key figures in her professional circle were crucial to establishing a pattern of intent. Blake's attorneys argued the communications were private and irrelevant. The judge disagreed, ruling decisively that they must be handed over. That ruling and the documents it unleashed changed everything. Among the first documents to shake the room was a message chain involving Ryan Reynolds himself. The tone was cagey, strategic, focused on containing the fallout. There were references to narrative control, and even a warning to a publicist about things getting out of hand. This wasn't the voice of a neutral bystander. It was the voice of someone who knew the gravity of the situation and wanted to manage the perception before the truth caught up. Then came the texts from Blake's phone. Deleted messages recovered from a backup drive contradicted previous sworn statements she had made under oath. In one, she acknowledged reading a damaging article long before she claimed to have even heard of it. In another, she discussed pressuring an individual to take the fall quietly and let the story die. He's weren't vague or speculative, these were direct, traceable, and admitted into evidence. The judge, notably reserved in previous sessions, finally showed his cards. He described what he saw as strategic obfuscation. That phrase might sound clinical, but in a courtroom it's a warning shot. It suggests not only that the judge sees through the legal maneuvering, but also that he believes someone may be deliberately misrepresenting or withholding key facts. And in a civil case where credibility is everything, that perception is devastating. As the court began digesting the new evidence, something else shifted. Ryan Reynolds was no longer protected by the distance he had created. For months he had remained mostly silent, allowing Blake to take center stage both legally and publicly. His carefully curated social media presence gave the impression of normalcy. But behind the scenes, he was far more involved than anyone realized. One email dated just days after Baldoni's team filed their explosive countersuit showed Ryan reaching out to a crisis PR executive. The subject line read, "We need a firewall." The body of the email warned that if the timeline gets out, we're toast. While it didn't specify the issue, the context was impossible to ignore. Legal analysts immediately began asking, what timeline, what secrets was he referring to? And most importantly, was there an attempt to preemptively spin the facts from that moment on? Ryan's hands weren't just visible, they were all over the narrative. If the court determines he played a direct role in shaping or suppressing evidence, it could open him up to civil exposure or even complicity in reputational manipulation. And while the court has not yet made any ruling against him specifically, the direction of the questions being asked is unmistakable. Hollywood's reaction was swift and silent. That's never a good sign. Major producers who once collaborated with the couple declined to comment. A list friends stopped liking Blake's posts. Endorsement partners began backing away, with one luxury brand reportedly hitting pause on a campaign scheduled to feature the pair this fall. It's not that people are declaring guilt, it's that people don't want to be standing too close. If more damaging revelations drop, a senior studio executive speaking anonymously to an industry outlet was blunt. They've gone from invincible to liability in just weeks. Nobody wants to touch this right now. That kind of statement is rare in Hollywood. The town runs on loyalty until loyalty becomes inconvenient. And what we're seeing now is the quiet panic of power players distancing themselves before the situation gets worse. Because once subpoenas start flying, especially if content creators' former assistants or PR firms are pulled into testimony, this could escalate far beyond a he said she said narrative. Back in court, Blake's legal team tried to push back. They claimed the messages were out of context and represented one side of a broader conversation. But the judge was unimpressed. In a stern rebuke, he noted that partial disclosure, when used to bolster a selective narrative, is inherently deceptive. That line landed like a hammer. It means the court is aware not only of what's being shown but also of what's still being hidden, and that any continued attempts to control the story from behind the scenes would be viewed as obstruction, not protection. So where does that leave us with a legal battlefield widening? By the day, Justin Baldoni's attorneys are reportedly preparing new witness lists. There's talk of forensic analysis on external devices. Journalists are digging through past statements Blake and Ryan have made on talk shows, comparing them to the legal timeline now forming in court. Everything is under scrutiny. And perhaps the most brutal part, we're still at the beginning. This isn't a conclusion. It's the opening of a second chapter, one defined by discovery, exposure, and possibly consequences neither Blake nor Ryan expected when they first stepped into this fight. The illusion of control is over. The spotlight is now in the courtroom. And under that spotlight, the truth always wins. The fallout began the moment the courtroom adjourned. The shockwaves didn't wait for the next legal filing or media recap. They began in real time, online, on television, and inside the very PR firms that had long protected Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds from the consequences of scrutiny. Within hours of the judge's ruling, legal observers, media outlets, and high-profile creators began tearing into the latest revelations. And for the first time in this increasingly chaotic legal saga, it wasn't just Blake under fire. It was the entire machine surrounding her, one that had been carefully engineered to shield both her and Ryan from accountability. What followed was nothing short of a panic behind the scenes. According to two separate insiders close to the situation, Blake's crisis PR team entered what they called red mode, a tier of emergency response usually reserved for catastrophic product recalls or A-list celebrity scandals involving criminal investigations. That level of response doesn't happen often. When it does, it means one thing: the team knows the story is no longer containable, and in this case it wasn't just uncontainable, it was out of control. As journalists began unpacking the judge's statement about selective disclosure, media analysts quickly pointed out the one thing PR teams hate to hear: that the narrative may have been manipulated. Any suggestion that information was withheld or that the public was misled sends one message to editors and media watchdogs everywhere: start digging. And that's exactly what happened. Within 24 hours, 3 major publications, including Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and Vanity Fair, began independently requesting comment from Blake's legal team about a string of private emails referenced in open court. These emails, which had previously been sealed or redacted in early filings, were now part of the record, and their contents, while not fully disclosed to the public yet, are already causing major concern within the industry. One email in particular appears to have sparked internal panic. According to legal analysts familiar with the case, the email involved Blake discussing a media buffer strategy with a prominent journalist. The implication: there may have been attempts to shape media coverage using off-the-record relationships, while simultaneously denying any such efforts in sworn statements. If proven, that could open the door to a deeper credibility crisis, not just for Blake, but for any journalists or outlets who knowingly participated in sanitizing the story. Meanwhile, the online response has been ferocious. Hashtags like #LivelyLeaks and #RyanReynoldsExposed began trending on social media within hours of the court hearing, as digital sleuths and legal YouTubers started analyzing every frame of courtroom footage and every paragraph of the judge's order. On Reddit and TikTok, creators pulled up old red carpet interviews and juxtaposed Blake's past comments with the courtroom revelations. What emerged wasn't just a case of PR spin. It was a growing belief that the entire foundation of the Lively&Reynolds public image may have been carefully constructed, then quietly protected behind closed doors. For Ryan Reynolds, the blow was unexpected. Unlike Blake, whose name has been directly tied to the core of the legal conflict, with Justin Baldoni, Ryan had so far managed to maintain plausible distance. But that changed the moment internal emails revealed he'd been looped into strategy discussions, messaging drafts, and even legal logistics. One particularly concerning email appears to reference mutual interests in minimizing blowback, a phrase that has become the centerpiece of public speculation online. Was Ryan simply protecting his wife, or was he actively involved in a coordinated effort to mislead the public? That's now the question everyone is asking. And unlike before, the media isn't waiting for permission to explore it. Major podcast networks have announced multi-episode investigations. Legal analysts are writing deep dives for digital publications. Even comedians have started joking about the trial, an ominous sign that the narrative is slipping beyond control. Adding to the pressure, former friends and colleagues are staying suspiciously quiet. People who once posted supportively about Blake and Ryan on social media have gone dark. Collaborators from past film projects have issued no-comment statements. And perhaps most telling of all, a longtime family friend of the couple quietly unfollowed both of them on Instagram. While that might seem trivial in the grand scheme of a courtroom drama, in the world of public perception, silence speaks volumes, and sudden unfollowing during a scandal is rarely accidental. Behind the scenes, PR consultants are reportedly urging the couple to go on the offensive with a pre-planned media tour, something that would reframe their role in the case, shift focus to legal harassment, and attempt to restore their reputation through carefully scripted interviews. But sources say Blake is resisting that strategy, fearing it may backfire and invite more scrutiny. Instead, they're betting on time. The hope is that if they stay quiet, the public will move on. But time is not on their side, because the next court date is approaching fast, and this time there are rumors that depositions will be made public. If that happens, it won't just be emails and messages at play. It'll be voices, real words under oath, and if any of those voices contradict the public image Blake and Ryan have maintained for years, it won't just be a legal mess, it'll be a personal reckoning. The panic inside their team is understandable. They're not just dealing with bad optics. They're facing a slow-motion collapse of narrative, one that's now playing out in public in real time. And with every new leak or court document, the situation grows more dire. The question is no longer whether Blake and Ryan can recover their image, it's whether they'll survive the next chapter of this case with any credibility at all. The silence didn't last long. As the media storm surrounding Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds escalated following the courtroom bombshells, something shifted behind the scenes, subtly at first, then all at once. Leaks, whispers, tips, internal messages shared with journalists. Suddenly, people from inside the couple's once impenetrable circle began speaking quietly, anonymously, but unmistakably. And with every word they whispered into the shadows, a new piece of the puzzle came into view. The narrative Blake Lively had worked so hard to control was unraveling from within. It started with a single message posted by an anonymous user on a private industry forum. "She lied. We told her not to push this." That short post, seemingly insignificant at first, was quickly cross-referenced by digital sleuths, who traced the user's IP to an entertainment law office based in Los Angeles, an office with previous ties to Lively's media contracts. Within hours, reporters were reaching out to former staffers, assistants, stylists, and even PR interns who had worked with the couple over the years. And to the shock of many, people started talking. The leaks weren't just vague claims. They were precise, time-stamped, and in some cases backed up by internal emails and documents now in the hands of legal journalists and commentators. One former team member reportedly provided text threads between Blake and a campaign strategist, discussing how to flip the narrative by subtly planting stories that would discredit Baldoni without directly attacking him. The text specifically warned, keep it clean, just enough to create doubt, no fingerprints. Another leak came in the form of a memo allegedly from a crisis communications meeting held weeks before the first hearing. In it, Ryan Reynolds is quoted as saying, "This can't become our problem, this stays hers." The tone, while ambiguous, has stirred intense online debate. Was Ryan distancing himself from a legal mess? Or was he attempting to shift blame in anticipation of fallout? And the most damaging leak yet, a redacted email chain that was apparently shared accidentally or not by a junior member of Blake's legal team to a journalist. The email included an internal legal opinion raising concern about the strength of Blake's central claims, particularly around timeline inconsistencies and digital correspondence. The opinion blunt and direct warned too many gaps, we won't be able to explain this if it surfaces in discovery. That single sentence sent shockwaves through the legal community, because what it implied beyond just narrative control was knowledge. Knowledge that the official story being presented in court had holes, and knowledge that if those holes were exposed they might not be patchable. As the leaks poured and public perception shifted again, even fans who had remained loyal began questioning the integrity of Blake's case. Online forums that once dismissed Baldoni's countersuit as opportunistic were now revisiting every piece of testimony with new eyes. TikTok creators broke down the timeline inconsistencies in real time, while long-form YouTubers launched full investigations combining court transcripts with archival interviews, red carpet statements, and promotional appearances to find every contradiction. The result, a digital reckoning. And this wasn't just isolated to YouTube commentary or Reddit threads. Even mainstream morning shows began addressing the controversy directly. A segment on Good Morning America opened with the line, "How did one of Hollywood's most beloved couples lose control of their own story?" That framing, once unthinkable, became the new normal. The narrative had escaped them. Behind the scenes, Blake's team scrambled to respond. One source claimed emergency NDA letters were issued to former staff, many of whom had already started cooperating with journalists. Another insider told a digital news outlet that to former employees had been offered consulting bonuses if they agreed to keep silent for the next 6 months. Whether that's true or not, the perception has now turned toxic. The more they try to control the story, the more they seem to lose control. What's even more remarkable is how the legal strategy itself appears to be shifting under pressure. Court filings filed in the days after the leaks took a noticeably different tone. Less aggressive, more procedural. One legal analyst noted that Blake's attorneys may be preparing to pivot away from emotional arguments and lean more heavily into legal technicalities. When the facts start turning against you, the analyst said, you start arguing process. Meanwhile, Baldoni's legal team is wasting no time. With the new leaks supporting many of their earlier allegations, they've requested expedited review of certain evidentiary exhibits. If granted, this could move the case toward a public deposition phase far sooner than Blake's team expected. And that's the moment everyone's watching for, because public depositions mean real-time damage. Every pause, every contradiction, every unexpected question becomes permanent record. And if the tone of those depositions echoes the growing chorus from her own inner circle, it could be the final blow to her credibility. At the center of all this, Ryan Reynolds remains largely silent. His last public appearance, a photo op at a charity event, was carefully managed. No press questions, no statements. Just smiling for the cameras, pretending nothing was wrong, but everyone knows something's wrong. And the silence is starting to sound like complicity. As one crisis PR expert put it, when leaks are coming from inside the house, the smartest thing to do is stop pretending it isn't on fire. But so far, that's exactly what Blake and Ryan appear to be doing, smiling through the smoke, hoping no one sees the flames licking at their feet. The storm swirling around Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds is no longer just a scandal. It's a full-blown reckoning. What began as a tightly managed public narrative is now collapsing under the weight of legal exposure, digital scrutiny, and a flood of internal leaks. The courtroom has turned into a spotlight, and under that glare, the flaws in their story are becoming impossible to ignore. Every email, every text message, every contradiction, they've all chipped away at the pristine image this Hollywood couple spent years constructing. And now that image lies shattered on the courtroom floor. What makes this moment so significant isn't just the legal risk, though that's mounting by the day. It's the unraveling of credibility. The kind of credibility that once made Blake Lively the face of prestige campaigns, and Ryan Reynolds the darling of mainstream media. That trust, once lost, is almost impossible to regain. And as more people from within their own inner circle come forward, whether through leaks, anonymous tips, or silent exits, the story continues to spiral beyond their control. The legal consequences are just beginning. If depositions are made public, and if further communication proves manipulation or bad faith behavior, the court may pursue even harsher measures. And in the court of public opinion, the judgment has already begun. Fans are walking away, collaborators are distancing themselves. Even media outlets that once treated the couple with reverence are now raising serious questions about their integrity, their strategy, and the truth they've been trying so desperately to bury. But perhaps the most damaging part is the silence. The refusal to acknowledge what's happening. Blake and Ryan's decision to remain silent may have been calculated, but that calculation is backfiring. In an era where transparency is often the only escape from scandal, their choice to wait it out is only fueling suspicion and frustration. Each day they stay quiet, the story grows louder. What lies ahead is unpredictable. The next court hearing could either escalate the crisis or offer the first opportunity for clarity. But one thing is clear, the reputation they once guarded so fiercely is no longer in their hands. It's in the hands of the court, the public, and the truth wherever that truth may lead. In the end, this is more than just a courtroom drama. It's a cautionary tale about power perception and what happens when celebrity image collides with legal reality. No matter how this case resolves, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds will never be seen the same way again. The facade has cracked. The truth is emerging, and no amount of spin can stop what's coming next. Because sometimes when you fight to control the narrative for too long, the narrative fights back. And this time, it's winning.